The Health and Social Care Secretary Matt Hancock. So what is it that you are proposing to do when it comes to dementia?
Well, we're going to double the funding for dementia research. Dementia it's a terrible condition, partly because more people are surviving through strokes and through cancer. More people now live with dementia in their declining years, and we want to tackle that. So we're going to double the funding, but more importantly, we're going to bring together what we're calling a moonshot goal, a national mission to galvanise the research community, to make sure they're funded, to bring the companies together as well that do research into this area, and the charities who do so much, to try to find a cure. And there is hope on the horizon of being able to find a cure. Probably in the first instance, it'll be something that slows down the onset of dementia, and then finding a cure when we can. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be able to make this announcement, because it really affects me personally. My grandmother suffered with dementia in her last 5 years or so of her life. She was an incredibly vibrant, sharp woman, and then watching that decline was really heartrending. And I know that there's so many people who feel the same and are affected. And as a society, I think it's something we can come together and do, and it's a really good example of the positive change that we want to see.
I'm sure that many people, of course, listening to this with experience of people, loved ones with dementia, will have sympathy of you and the situation with your grandmother as well, of course.
Yeah.
We know, of course, that dementia is something that is probably going to be more of a challenge for us in the years ahead as a country. I mean, is this money really enough, or is this just really just keeping at a standing still pace?
Oh no, this is a doubling of the government research budget. But what I also hope can come as part of it is bringing some of the big charities who've done a lot of research, galvanising their effort, bringing together the scientists from around the world who are working on this and making sure they're fully supported, and essentially putting at their disposal all of the power of government to try to sort this problem. So, you know, it is about the money. Of course, that's an important part of it, but it's about more than that. It's about bringing people together and saying, we are going to crack this. We're going to find that cure, and we're going to back you to make it happen, and put all of the resources of the NHS and the funding budgets at the disposal of this moonshot, make it a real national mission.
Talking about the big healthcare challenges of the future, I really want to talk to you about social care. Because when Boris Johnson first became Prime Minister, he said, I'm announcing now on the steps of Downing Street that we will fix the crisis in social care once and for all. And with a clear plan, we have prepared to give every older person the dignity and security they deserve. So if he's going to keep that promise, then what is that clear plan that you are proposing?
Yes, well, we're going to set out in our manifesto tomorrow a three-point plan on social care. The first is that we need to have more funding in the short term to support people. It's both older people and, of course, people of working age who need support through social care. So we have a £5 billion package of extra funding. But everybody knows that this is not a problem that can be fixed with just more short-term measures. They're important, but they can't fix it. So we're also going urgently to seek a cross-party consensus. I want to build a consensus in the same way that we have a consensus behind the NHS in this country. I want to have a consensus behind the solution to social care. And so I look forward to working with other parties. Some of the other parties have also stated that they'll take the same approach, but we're absolutely determined to fix it. Now, then we've put also some details on how, but we also want to be open-minded to bring that consensus together. But what we're absolutely clear about is that we want to end the injustice in which some people have to lose their homes to pay for their care. You know, if you suffer from cancer, for instance, then the state takes care of you. But if you suffer from dementia that we were just talking about, then many people end up having to lose their homes in order to pay for their care. You can't tell in advance if you're going to suffer from dementia, if you're going to need care. About 10% of the population need care of the cost of more than £100,000 over their lifetime. But on the other hand, about a quarter of the population don't have any care needs at all. And so we're going to tackle that injustice by bringing people together. And because it's a long-term solution that's needed, it's really best done with that cross-party consensus.
I just want to get this straight. Boris Johnson's promised a clear plan on social care. We know there's a crisis in social care. The Association of Directors of Adult Social Service, for example, say tens of thousands of older and disabled people are not getting help to do really, really simple things like washing, like dressing, that they're cut off in a sea of inertia because of cuts. And listening to what you're saying, you're basically just saying you want to get around a table and find a consensus to do something. I mean, how long did it take you to come up with that? That's not a plan, is it?
The plan is very clear because we're putting money in as well. We're putting money in the short term, and over the last couple of years, there's been a rise of over 10% in the money going into social care, and we're going to do more with this £5 billion that we're putting forward. But we also do need to make sure we get as much of a cross-party consensus as possible.
Okay.
And the way to do that is to set out the principles, which we've done.
Let's just talk about that money that you're talking about there, shall we? The £5 billion, so £1 billion a year extra for the next 5 years, if you win the election. But £7.7 billion has been cut from the social care budget since 2010, so that doesn't even cover what's been cut, does it?
That's not quite right. The social care budget has been rising since 2015. We put an extra...
I'm talking about since 2010, when the Conservatives came into coalition, when you came into power.
Well, we all know that savings had to be made because the Labour Party left no money. Do you remember the note that was left in the Treasury? I'm sorry, there is no money left. It looks like from the Labour manifesto, they're proposing to do even worse if they were to get into power this election. So, of course, savings had to be made, but I'm glad that we've now been able to increase the amount of money that's going towards social care, including £1 billion 2 months ago, which means that we can, with this commitment we're making, we can stabilise the current system, and we're putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak. But we've also got to have that long-term solution, and we're laying out our principles and the way that we want to tackle it. But I look forward to talking to people in other parties to actually make it happen and to get a plan that will stick. Because a bit like pensions, when you make a big pensions reform, you want that to be cross-party, because the decisions you make now affect people in many, many years to come.
Is it true that you've been a bit burned by what happened at the last election when Theresa May set out her plans to try and reform, change the social care system, and then there was a backlash, it was controversial, so now you're basically letting politics trump policy making?
No, I think good policy making involves bringing that consensus together, and that is best done outside of an election campaign. But I would also say this, that I am against the idea that people lose their homes to pay for care. It really matters to me. It matters to so many people. People being able to buy their own home, and it's something that often they work their whole life for. And the idea that you then have your home taken away from you because you suffered from dementia when somebody else who suffered from a different condition didn't lose their home, I think that is a bad place for society to get to, and I want to fix it. And so the proposal that was put forward in the manifesto in 2017, of course, politicos can debate the impact it had on the election, and I've certainly got my views, but I also think it was the wrong policy. I don't want more people losing their homes to pay for care. I want people to have the security to know that if they put money aside every month into a mortgage and work all their life for it, they're going to be able to keep that home. It's a deep, deep human instinct that I feel very strongly, and I understand, and millions of people feel this way, and that injustice should be tackled rather than made worse. So that's why we've made that principle clear, and then I look forward to engaging with the other parties on how we put it into practice.
A quick thought from you on another healthcare story in the news today. GPs voting to scrap home visits from part of their key contracts. Is this something that you're comfortable with as Health Secretary?
No, it won't happen. Of course, GPs sometimes need to do home visits. And we're going to fund and train and hire more GPs, 6,000 more of them over the next Parliament. But this idea that's been put forward by the GPs won't fly.
OK. Now, talking about Brexit, one of your colleagues, Rishi Sunak, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, told The Telegraph that no-deal planning would resume if the Conservatives win the next election. Is that right? Would no deal be back on the table if you win a majority?
No, we've got a great deal and we're going to deliver on that deal. And in fact, the big thing that's happened in the last 24 hours on Brexit is that whereas Boris is absolutely clear that we're going to deliver Brexit on his deal, I'm absolutely thrilled that he got a good deal and lots of people said that he couldn't and he delivered it, and I backed him to get a deal and he got it. And the reason we're having the election is because Parliament then wouldn't allow him to put that deal through. And what we've seen on the other side and found out last night, I think a really big moment in this election, Jeremy Corbyn saying that he has actively decided to be indecisive on the biggest issue of the day. It won't wash with voters. I think it's an absolute disaster. You can't ask this country to be its Prime Minister whilst not having a view on the biggest issue of the day, which is Brexit. And
I just want to come back to the Conservative policy, just to be crystal clear.
If I can just finish this point. After this election, only one of two people could be Prime Minister, either Boris Johnson or Jeremy Corbyn. And we now know that only one of those two, Boris, has got a plan to deliver Brexit and get the politics of this country moving forwards after
let's talk about this plan,
what's happened over the last 3 years.
Because I'm still a little bit confused that the Chief Secretary of the Treasury is saying that no-deal planning would resume if the Conservatives win the election. And we know that there is a tight timeframe as well to get this trade deal stitched up if you say that you don't want to extend the transition beyond the end of 2020. So no-deal Brexit absolutely off the table going forward. Is that right?
As the Prime Minister, as Dominic Raab have said, no deal is not going to happen because we've got a great deal and we're going to put that deal through. Every Conservative candidate is signed up to it. I just hope beyond hope that we can get a majority so that finally we can get the country moving. You know, it doesn't matter how you voted in the referendum 3.5 years ago. As you know, I voted Remain. But I'm a Democrat. And we respect the results of democratic votes in this country because we are a democracy, the world's, most famous democracy. And that means you've got to respect the result, and whether you like it or not. And so everybody who's standing to be a Conservative MP at this election is signed up to and determined to deliver Brexit on Boris's new deal. And then we can get onto all the other things like social care that we were talking about that have been stuck because of the Brexit debate. A vote for any other party will lead to more of the chaos and dither and delay that we've seen over the last 3 years. There's only one way to get the country moving forward, and that's to vote Conservative.
Now, while I've got you, I just want to finish with some of these campaign videos that you've been posting on social media, because they've caused a little bit of a stir, some of them, shall we? These kind of like little selfie videos that you've been doing around the country on the campaign trail, saying things like, it's Yorkshire, it's before 7 in the morning, it's raining and we are ready to go. In one recent one as well, you appear to have a tree growing out of your head in that video. Is it a little bit Alan Partridge?
No. I mean, I love campaigning and I love general election campaigns. And I've been working incredibly hard in this one. I've now done 71 constituency visits right across the country, many, many more to come. There's so much investment going into our health service that there's so many places I need to go to explain the extra scanners we're putting in, the extra hospitals that we're building, the upgrades that we're doing. So I'm I'm going around the country, and I think social media is one tool to explain that. And it's funny when I go and knock on doors, and the people say to me essentially two things: one, invest in the NHS, which we're doing, and two, get Brexit done. And that is the message of this election. There's only one party that can get Brexit done in order to invest in the NHS. In fact, I was on a door in Chatham day before yesterday, and the gentleman opened the door. I was with Tracy Crouch, brilliant candidate, has been a brilliant MP, and he said, I work for you, pointing at me, and I'm voting for you, Tracy, because you're investing in the NHS and you're going to deliver Brexit. And I thought, well, that sums this election up.
OK, thank you very much. Might need to work on the framing a little bit in those future videos, but thank you very much, Matt Hancock there.